Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I've always been the type to push through pain. My parents always instilled in me a strong work ethic. They would emphasize the importance of not making excuses. So when I landed a job at a small marketing firm right out of college, I was determined to prove myself. The pay wasn't great, but I saw it as a stepping stone. Plus, I liked the work and most of my co-workers. My boss, though, he was another story. A micromanager who seemed to think we all lived to work. But I dealt with it, figuring it was part of paying my dues. That Labor Day weekend, I went camping with some friends. It was a much-needed break from the grind. We hiked, roasted marshmallows, and just enjoyed being away from our screens. But as we were packing up Monday morning, disaster struck. I stepped wrong while carrying a heavy cooler and felt that sickening pop in my ankle. I've sprained my ankle before, so I knew the drill. Rest, ice, compression, and elevation. No need for expensive doctor visits, just to be told what I already knew. So Tuesday morning I hobbled into work thinking I'd power through. By mid-morning the pain was unbearable. I knocked on my boss's office door. I explained to him that I needed to head home due to my injured ankle from a camping accident. My boss responded negatively, expressing concern about deadlines. I tried to explain that I could barely walk and needed rest for faster healing. He questioned why I hadn't seen a doctor, calling my actions irresponsible. I explained that I had experience with this type of injury and knew how to treat it, assuring him I'd be back the next day. My boss reluctantly agreed but warned me not to expect payment for that day. I bit my tongue and left, fuming. The next day I came in wearing a crock on my injured foot. It was the only thing that didn't cause excruciating pain. My boss zeroed in on me immediately. He suggested I should get my ankle checked out, expressing confusion about why I didn't want to pay for medical care. I reiterated my previous explanation about my familiarity with the injury, emphasizing that I was there to keep up with my work and could do most of it from my desk. My boss then informed me that I wouldn't receive sick pay for the previous day without a doctor's note. That was the last straw. I've been trying to be responsible, to save the company money, and still get my work done. But if he wanted to play hardball, I could do that too. I told him I would go get the note he wanted so badly. I drove to the urgent care center, got an x-ray, and explained the situation to the doctor. The doctor asked about how many days off I thought I needed. I expressed my preference to work if possible, explaining that I could do most of my job sitting down. The doctor then wrote up a note for me. She handed me a note saying I could return to work the following Monday, 4 days from now. I snapped a picture and sent it to my boss. My boss responded with a brief message asking what was wrong with my ankle. I didn't bother responding. He had his precious note. He wanted to force me to spend money on an unnecessary doctor's visit? Fine. Now he'd be paying me for 4 days off instead of the one I'd originally asked for. When I returned to work on Monday, my boss was noticeably chilly. He made a sarcastic comment about hoping I enjoyed my little vacation. I responded by thanking him for insisting on the doctor's note, implying it had been very helpful. He knew he'd been outplayed, and there wasn't a thing he could do about it. From that day on, he never questioned my need for sick time again. Sometimes, malicious compliance is the best teacher. I started looking for a new job. Life's too short to work for people who don't trust or respect you. And you know what? A month later, I landed a position at a company that offers better pay, better benefits, and managers who actually care about their employees' well-being. Sometimes a sprained ankle can lead you down a better path. Let me give you some background first. I'm the CEO of a tech startup that just went public. After years of long nights, countless rejections, and living on ramen noodles, we finally made it big. To celebrate, I decided to treat myself and my core team to a weekend cruise on a luxury yacht I rented. The day started perfectly. The sun was shining, the sea was calm, and we were all in high spirits. My team and I were lounging on the deck, sipping cocktails and reminiscing about our journey from a garage startup to a multi-million-dollar company. That's when things took a turn for the crazy. I heard a commotion coming from the lower deck. At first, I thought maybe one of the crew members had dropped something, but then I heard shouting. Confused, I made my way down to investigate. What I saw next was like something out of a bad movie. There was this woman, probably in her 40s, soaking wet and screaming at the top of her lungs. Somehow, she had managed to climb aboard our yacht from the water. I asked her who she was and what was going on. The woman, clearly agitated, demanded to speak to the captain, insisting that she was entitled to a cruise and was determined to get one. I tried to explain to her that this was a private yacht and that she needed to leave immediately. However, she refused, stating that she had been watching us, living it up, from the shore all day, and now it was her turn. Before anyone could stop her, she pushed past me and ran towards the helm. This complete stranger was trying to take control of a multi-million-dollar yacht. The woman frantically asked how to start the yacht, expressing her desire for a cruise. I yelled at her to stop, warning her that she didn't know what she was doing. I signaled to my security team to restrain her, but she was surprisingly slippery. She managed to dodge them and ran back down to the lower deck. The woman then made a shocking declaration. She threatened that if she couldn't have her cruise, no one would. To my horror, she grabbed a pile of towels from the galley and pulled out a lighter from her pocket. Within seconds, the towels were ablaze. She issued an ultimatum demanding that we give her what she wanted, or she would burn the entire boat down. The situation had escalated from bizarre to dangerous in a matter of minutes. Smoke was starting to fill the galley, and panic was setting in. That's when my secretary stepped forward. Let me tell you, she might look unassuming in her business attire, but she's got a black belt in judo and nerves of steel. My secretary firmly declared that enough was enough. In one swift move, she grabbed the woman's arm, twisted it behind her back, and forced her face down onto the deck. The woman screamed and thrashed, but my secretary held her firmly in place. The intruder protested loudly, demanding to be released. She tried to assert her importance and threatened to sue us all. My secretary calmly informed her that the only place she was going was jail. While this was happening, the crew managed to put out the fire before it spread. Thankfully, the damage was minimal, just some scorched towels and a smoky smell in the galley. We radioed the Coast Guard, and within 20 minutes, a patrol boat pulled up alongside us. The officers were as baffled as we were when we explained the situation. The Coast Guard officer informed the woman that she was under arrest for trespassing, attempted theft, and arson. As they handcuffed her and prepared to take her away, the woman had the audacity to look offended. She complained that the situation was ridiculous and that she was just trying to have a nice day out. I couldn't help but point out the absurdity of her statement, reminding her that she had broken onto a private yacht, tried to steal it, and then attempted to set it on fire. The woman, still not grasping the gravity of her actions, retorted that if we had just given her what she wanted, none of this would have happened. Here was this woman, dripping wet, face red with anger, being led away in handcuffs, and she still thought she was in the right. As the Coast Guard boat pulled away with our unwanted guest, my team and I stood on the deck in stunned silence. Then, slowly, we all started to laugh. It was either that or cry at this point. I remarked to my team that this was undoubtedly a company outing we'd never forget. We spent the rest of the cruise swapping theories about where our Karen had come from and how she'd managed to climb aboard. Was she a strong swimmer? Did she have a boat nearby? We'll probably never know. One thing's for sure, though. From now on, I'm doubling the security on all my yachting trips. You never know when an entitled person might decide they're owed a luxury cruise at your expense. Karen is facing multiple charges. I almost feel bad for her. But then I remember the look of pure entitlement on her face as she demanded her cruise. And suddenly, I don't feel so bad anymore. You know, they say money can't buy happiness, but I'll tell you what it can buy. A story that'll be the highlight of every dinner party for years to come. Let me tell you about the time I worked for this family business and how it all went down. So, a few months ago, I was job hunting. I've been out of work for a while, and things were getting tight. I'm a marketing professional with a decent amount of experience, but the job market was tough. That's when I came across this opening at a fitness equipment liquidator. It sounded promising. A family-owned business looking for someone to boost their marketing efforts. I went through the usual application process, had a few interviews, and eventually got an offer. The recruiter who set it all up seemed pretty excited about the placement, but then things took a weird turn. The night before I was supposed to start, I got a call from the CEO herself. Let's call her Karen, because that's exactly who she turned out to be. Karen called me expressing her excitement about my joining the team the next day. She then proposed a side deal, suggesting we bypass the recruiter. She explained that she could pay me less officially, but I'd still end up with more than if we went through the recruiter, claiming it would be a win-win situation. I should have seen the red flag right there, but I was desperate for work. And to be honest, I was half asleep when she called. I mumbled something non-committal and went back to bed, figuring I'd deal with it in the morning. When I showed up at the office the next day, I was in for a culture shock. The place was, well, let's just say, professional boundaries didn't exist. Karen greeted me like I was her long-lost child, complete with a hug and a kiss on the cheek. I thought maybe it was just first-day enthusiasm, but nope. This was standard procedure. Karen welcomed me warmly, referring to me as "sweetie" and telling me I was now part of the family. She then offered to introduce me to everyone. She led me around, introducing me to her kids, who apparently all worked there too, and a few other employees who seemed to blend right in with the family. It was hard to tell who was actually related and who wasn't. In the first few weeks, I was trying to get a handle on their current marketing efforts. Spoiler alert, there weren't many. While also navigating this bizarre family work dynamic. Meetings were less about strategy and more like chaotic family dinners. During one meeting, I attempted to discuss focusing on improving our social media presence. However, Karen's son interrupted, reminiscing about the time his father tried to make an Instagram account and kept posting blurry pictures of his feet. Karen then chimed in, agreeing that her husband was never good with technology and started to recall another family anecdote. And off they go, reminiscing about family stories while I sat there, marketing plan in hand, wondering what I'd gotten myself into. Despite the challenges, I did manage to get some work done. I automated a bunch of their manual processes, set up Salesforce and Slack to improve communication, implemented Zendesk for customer service, and even streamlined their point-of-sale system. I was pretty proud of these accomplishments, especially given the unique work environment. But about a month in, things took a turn. I was called into a meeting with Karen and her daughter, who was supposedly in charge of operations. The atmosphere was tense from the moment I walked in. Karen initiated the conversation by stating we needed to discuss my performance. When I asked what the problem was, her daughter explained that they weren't seeing the results they expected, mentioning that sales weren't up and they weren't seeing the growth Karen wanted. I tried to explain that I had implemented several systems to improve efficiency and had been working on our social media strategy. However, I mentioned that I hadn't had much help or participation from the team. Karen dismissed this as excuses, stating that they hired me to fix things, not to tell them what they were doing wrong. I attempted to clarify that I wasn't making excuses, but explaining the situation. I pointed out that I had done exactly what I said I would do, but marketing isn't a one-person job and I needed input in cooperation. Karen's daughter then asked if I was saying it was their fault. The conversation devolved from there. They wanted miraculous results in just a few weeks, with zero budget and no cooperation from anyone else in the company. When I tried to explain the realities of marketing and the time it takes to see results, they weren't having it. Karen expressed that it was clear this wasn't working out and that they had expected much more from me. When I tried to highlight the improvements I had made to their systems, automated processes, and customer service channels, Karen dismissed it, asking about sales and growth. I realized at that moment that there was no winning this argument. They had unrealistic expectations and no understanding of how marketing actually works. So, I left. But as I was packing up my things, I noticed all the safety violations around the warehouse. Exposed wires where customers walked, forklifts being operated by uncertified staff with no safety equipment, employees standing on forklift forks to reach high shelves. It was a disaster waiting to happen. I debated what to do with this information. Part of me wanted to just walk away and never look back, but another part of me couldn't shake the feeling that someone could get seriously hurt if nothing was done. After a few days of internal debate, I made the call to the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA. I sent them the photos I had taken originally just to document the issues in case they ever came up in a marketing context, and explained the situation. The OSHA representative expressed concern but cautioned me that these things take time. They explained that, even with clear evidence, it could take months for action to be taken, but assured me they would look into it. I thanked them and tried to put the whole experience behind me. But curiosity got the best of me and I found myself checking in every now and then. Months passed and finally, I got confirmation that action had been taken. Curious about what had happened, I drove past the warehouse one day. What I saw shocked me. The place was abandoned. Broken signage, overgrown parking lot, boarded up windows, the whole 9 yards. I later found out that the fines from OSHA had been substantial. Coupled with their already shaky financial situation, turns out miracle marketing growth can't fix fundamental business problems. It was enough to sink the company. The final nail in the coffin. I heard through a realtor friend that Karen and her family had to sell their house, and fast. They packed up and left town. Their website went dark, and just like that, the whole operation vanished. Looking back, I still can't believe how it all played out. I never intended to be the cause of someone's business failing, but then again, I never intended to work for a company that put people's safety at risk either. In the end, I guess you could say karma caught up with Karen and her entitled attitude. She tried to cheat a recruiter, treated her business like a family playground, ignored safety regulations, and expected miracles without putting in the work. I'm a lawyer who deals with land issues. I moved to a small beach town for a quieter life. I bought a house and a small group of homes. Some of us could use a private road to get to the beach. Things were good until a big new neighborhood was built next door. The new neighborhood's leader thought everyone in our small group could use the beach road. He was wrong. He wanted to join our groups together, thinking everyone would get beach access. The owner of the private road got angry when lots of cars started using it. He blocked the road with big logs. No one could get to the beach anymore. Instead of checking the facts, the new leader decided to sue the road owner. He made everyone pay for it. My neighbor asked for my help. I looked at all the papers and wrote a long letter explaining. 1. Only a few of us old homeowners could use the road. 2. Our old group didn't have beach access as a whole. 3. Joining the groups didn't give new houses beach access. 4. Using everyone's money for the lawsuit was wrong. 5. The new group wasn't set up properly. I gave them the letter, but they ignored it and kept suing. We got fed up and decided to sue the leader and break up the new group. We went to court. In court, I explained everything to the judge. The leader kept interrupting, saying everyone should have beach access. The judge told him that's not how property law works. I told the judge the new group wasn't formed correctly. When asked about this, the leader just talked about fairness and how much they paid for their houses. The judge explained that fair and legal aren't always the same thing. Then he made his decision. The judge broke up the new group and made the leader pay for all the legal costs. It was a total loss for him. After that, the leader had to declare bankruptcy. He had to sell his house and move away. It was a tough lesson for him. The rest of us went back to our quiet lives. Those of us who could use the beach road kept doing so. Others found the public beaches to visit. It wasn't the happy ending the leader wanted, but it was fair and legal. Sometimes it's important to check the facts before making big decisions, especially when it comes to property rights. This story shows how one person's stubbornness can cause problems for many others, and how following the law is crucial in resolving disputes.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.